Have you ever thought of giving up in anything? Like you are thinking that I can't make it up all over again. It happens many a times. For example, you have tried to score the best in your exam. For example, in maths exam. But somehow you couldn't score much, but you had that benchmark to score the full marks, but you couldn't. You are trying every year, you are trying and trying and trying, and there will a certain point of time will come when you think eventually to give up. But is it a right thing to give up at all the aspects? If you are giving up about something you have wished to succeed on, I don't think it is going to be fair with your wish or with your aim to be fulfilled. Rather, you must try and try again. I am Janavi, your English teacher. Today we are going to start the poem from your English textbook NCERT, Try Again, written by Eliza Cook. So, as the title states, Try Again is itself a motivation. Sometimes it's happening that you feel like I did a lot, now I can't. Just like that, here the King Bruce of Scotland, a very mighty king, okay, sitting all alone, he was worried and frustrated because his heart was heavy due to his failure on to do something very great for the people, but he couldn't succeed upon that. That is why he tried again and again. Then also he couldn't accomplish that. Hence he was very, very disheartened, and from a spider, a random spider, he is getting that encouragement or that kind of motivation, right? When you are failing in your exam, or rather than failing, you are not scoring that good. So there should be one guardian who guides you to try more and more, because towards success, the key is practice and not giving up. So here in this story, similarly, how when just the king was about to give up, at least in his mind, that very spider has influenced his thoughts and motivated for not giving up at all. So let us start the understanding of this poem, Try Again. So the author or the poet of this poem is Eliza Cook, as I have told. Nextly, let us just line by line understand what the poem deals with. So the poem starts as King Bruce of Scotland flung himself down in a lonely mood to think. It's true, he was monarch and wore a crown, but his heart was beginning to sink. Okay, so King Bruce of Scotland, he was in a very lonely mood to think. So he flung himself down, means he sat on the floor, and he thought that it's true that he was the king, and wore a crown. Okay, monarch means king. So it was true that he's a monarch or the king and wore the crown. But then also his heart was beginning to sink. Okay, that means his heart was fully of grief, or he was deeply saddened. That is why they, in a very poetic way, they are saying that uh, his heart is sinking. Okay, that means like if something is sinking, there's no hope to come above the water level. Okay, if something is going down in the deep pond like structure, anything is going down, so there is no hope that it will come above the water surface. Just like that, his heart was sinking in that deep sorrow. Okay, so this is the philosophy of the poem, or the very poetic language. Now, he was very lonely mood that was written over there, and it was true for him that he wore the crown, but his heart, as I said, that he was deeply saddened. Okay, and was also depressed. Okay, sinking, something is, there's no hope, that means you are depressed. Okay, so that depression sort of thing here is stated. Now, in the next lines, the poet is saying that for he had been trying to do a great deed to make his people glad. He had tried and tried but couldn't succeed, and so he became quite sad. Okay, so he had been trying to do great deed, means he had been trying to do great efforts, great actions. Still, he couldn't make the people glad or happy. Okay, the people, they were not being happy by the deeds of the king, the actions of the king. Okay, and he couldn't succeed in that due. Okay, because he couldn't succeed, so he became very, very sad. Okay, you can see that he had tried and tried but could not succeed, and so he became quite sad, completely sad. Okay, and in the upcoming lines, what we can see, that he flung himself down in low despair, as grieved as man could be, and after a while he pondered there. I will give it all up, said he. Now he just threw himself in low despair, means full sorrow. Okay, you can see the word meanings, that he flung himself down in low despair, threw himself in low despair, as grieved as a man could be, means the rock bottom unhappy or depressed he was at that moment. Next, what is there to see? That, and after a while he pondered there, I will give it all up, said he. Then he thought, like, when that random thoughts are coming and we are very disheartened by some sort of things. So the negative, among the negative feelings come, and hence here the king is feeling to give up everything. Pondered means to think. Okay, so pondered, he thought here. Now, in the next lines, we can see, now just at that moment, a spider dropped with its silken filmy clue, and the king, in the midst of his thinking, stopped to see what the spider would do. Now, in just that moment, from the ceiling or the roof, one of a spider dropped from there. Okay, and he noticed, he very willfully noticed that spider, that what it was doing. Okay, so he noticed the filmy means very thin and silken, the texture, you know that how the spider's net is very silky, that web is very silky. Okay, the texture looks like, and very thin and translucent. So it dropped with that very fine, thread-like structure made by itself. So it dropped, okay, and the king noticed it very well. Then what is saying that, and the king, the midst of his thinking, stopped to see what the spider would do. So here the poet is narrating, like in the middle of all this emotional turmoil, how the king is feeling, he suddenly just stopped to see what the spider is doing. Okay. Then in the upcoming lines, we will see that it was a long way up to the ceiling dome, and it hung by a rope so fine that how it would get to its cobweb home, King Bruce could not divine. Okay, so it was a long way up to the ceiling, means up to the roof, it was a long way. And he couldn't predict how, through that very fine thread-like structure created by the spider itself, it would just go that high. Okay, but it was not afraid of the height, or was not afraid of the failure, but he was trying, and just it reached above. Okay, so this is the very meaning of the story, that you can see now the meaning, that twas in your book, the poetic term twas, it means it was. It's very rapid way how we pronounce it, so that is why twas means it was. A long way up to the ceiling dome. Okay, ceiling dome, the roof. Okay, basically the ceiling, which structure is like this, a hollow ball. If you cut the spear, okay, how from the inside it looks like. So a dome ceiling means the structure is like this from the inside. Okay, where he was there. So the ceiling dome, here is the roof. Okay, so how it will go that far above. Okay, so he was just noticing that even that spider was not giving up to go above that height. In this story, we got the moral. In the poem, there is the whole plot of story, that a king of Scotland, King Bruce, was very much disappointed with whatever he had done. He couldn't succeed to make his people glad, and that's why he was quite deeply saddened. And when he was thinking about it, you can say he was overthinking a lot. Then he noticed that spider very randomly, who was just dropping down, and then it's trying to reach again above to the very high ceiling, but it was not at all giving up to reach that high. With its own strength and whatever it could do by itself, it just reached that top. From here, the king got that motivation to never give up and to find solace in failures even. That is the very philosophy of this poem. This is very beautiful for every student or every person, even the adults, to think before giving it all up. Hope you find the philosophy of this poem very interesting. I do so, and I think so you do. I hope you find this video interactive and interesting. Let us meet again on some other video discussing another story or poem. Until then, bye and have a very nice day ahead.